Recording now. Okay.
There it is.
So for everyone on Facebook, this is the real. So we are. Oh, hold on. Let me turn it down because it's so loud on my phone. Anybody else looking at it on their phone?
I'm on my phone, but because my computer was just taking too long.
Yeah, it's such a delay on the phone. All right. Everyone, thank you, Will Thomas, for watching.
You're good.
All right, I just want to start by saying, y'all, I'm very grateful for you participating, and hopefully this won't be the last time that we get to do something like this to show our prowess when it comes to supporting our kids. And with that said, family, remember that I'm doing this show. Ben, turn the TV down, please. Real live.
Right.
All right, so we are gonna get started. It is 6:29. I'm an ex-cheerleader, so they always tell us early is 5 minutes, on time is 5 minutes early, something like that. Be early so you be on time. I completely forgot. So I want everyone to introduce themselves. I am Kendall Tyson, professional school counselor and licensed therapist. I currently work in Beijing, China, and I'll be returning to the States at some point. So who wants to go next?
My name is Nikisha Dotson. I'm a professional school counselor in Aldine ISD at a middle school, at Garcia Middle School.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Dotson. I'm currently a middle school counselor in Aldine ISD, Lewis Middle School, and that's where I'll be returning to.
Hi, good evening. My name is Eva Moreno. I'm currently a professional school counselor in Cypher ISD, and I'm at Kayla Middle School, as well as middle school.
I'm Chastity Chase Caesar, and I am an assistant principal in Cypress Fairbanks ISD at Post Elementary.
My name is Jerry Rowland, and I'm representing the parents. My daughter goes to school in DeKalb County, Georgia. She's at a charter school called the Globe Academy, and I'm an electrical engineer.
Yes, all of y'all are parents except for me.
Oh. Okay. I guess we forgot to mention that. And a
That
parent.
will change.
Right. Oh, and she's a rising 7th grader.
So good evening, everybody. My name is William N. Thomas IV. I am the Director of Science at Mashpee Charter School in Philadelphia, as well as in Camden, New Jersey. I'm as well as a parent, just like you, of a 14-year-old and a 4-year-old. Stationed here in Washington, D.C. currently. I travel back and forth, and just really a pleasure to be here with so many bright minds.
Yes. So for everyone who hasn't shared, again, everyone's parents. I haven't joined that club yet. If you haven't shared, how old is your child, and like what grade level are they in current or moving to?
Thomas and I have two daughters. We have one who is 9 years old. She's going to 4th grade, and that's Devin. And Dylan is soon to be 12 years old, going to 7th grade.
She's 12?
She'll be 12,
Oh my goodness.
August 12th.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Jay?
Yes, I have a 11, almost 12-year-old Chase, my mini-me, and he will be going into middle school, 6th grade. So this is super uncharted waters because he's going from elementary to middle and then the whole virtual.
Yeah.
So hello, everybody. I have a 3-year-old toddler. He currently is not attending daycare. We did pull both of our children out for the meantime. And I have a 5-year-old little girl, and she'll be attending kindergarten. I am a little nervous, especially, at kindergartners, they need the hands-on experience. So I'm a little nervous on how this is going to work out, especially with our children.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I want to just give like a brief overview of the whole purpose of what we're doing. It's really as educators and parents and the dual roles or multi-role that we all play. It's kind of to come together and convene about what are some of the best practices that we've implemented that we would like implemented to better support the social emotional needs of our children as they return to school, and kind of how do all stakeholders, the school community, parents, the community at large, how can we collaborate to make sure that our kids are getting their needs met, all needs, holistically, and they're able to grow despite the collective trauma that we're all currently experiencing. So as you've noticed, we have people from varying levels of education, parents, and I think that we all are going to bring a wealth of knowledge, because one thing that I noticed, and I'm wondering if any of you all notice, is when these conversations are happening, especially like on a state level or nationally, a lot of us, the people that do the work on the ground, aren't involved. So to be able to share our perspectives, provide information, resources, best practices, I think will go a long way for us not only being able to support one another, but to be able to offer, any information, advise and consent for other people in our profession. Does anybody have any comments to that?
Well, I think I can say something first in regards to, I know I saw Chase, I know you said you're having soon to be a middle schooler. The advice I give our parents when your child is transitioning from elementary to middle school, we as parents have misconceptions. We tend to kind of take our hands off, but at that time, they will need you more than ever. The reason why, if you have a child that's leaving elementary school, they're being walked to class, they walk everywhere, they have the same teachers, so everything is done for them as if now once they transition to middle school, that's no longer done for you. You have 7 to 8 different classes. You must find them. You must navigate throughout the building. All this is done before you sit down in the class to even learn. Not to mention all the social different things going on. So one thing I try to let parents know: don't take your hands off. Stay involved with them. They need you. They won't tell you, but they need you.
You're very right. I just went through that. My daughter, she's going to the 7th, so with the 6th grade, they don't communicate what they need. It's like they in between because they still babies, but then they think they older, and just teaching them like time management, getting to class on time, and trying to keep up with the teachers too, because that's another thing. You got to stay in contact with the teachers and see how your kid is doing, because they have so many different teachers now. And it's just you have to stay more on top of them now than before.
Yeah. Yeah. Like going into middle school as a person that's only worked in middle school, and now when in China, I'm middle school all the way through 12th grade. Like they all transition is the thing. Like they all struggle with transitioning from one phase to another. And if they aren't receiving the appropriate support, they can really struggle mental health wise. And, as all of you all know, that shows up differently for each child. And that's some of the stuff that we'll discuss tonight. What do you do, when you have a child that's struggling and you don't necessarily know what to do moving forward? So before we go deeper, I want us to engage in a social emotional practice to build culture, classroom culture, to be able to have students better, be more aware of their emotions. What I would like you to do, and they all got, scaffolded beforehand. I would like for you to write down, how are you feeling right now? In one word, if you can. Write it down and then show it to the screen. It's gonna be backwards. I'll share mine. Mine is energetic. I see hope.
Y'all can see that. Mellow.
Optimistic, hopeful, enthusiastic. Well, I can't see yours. Tired. Yes, child. And we'll wait on Jerry to show hers. So what that activity does, when you do a check-in, what's going to be really important moving, and I'm not going to be the only one that talks, obviously, but moving forward, what we're going to really have to hone in on is reintegrating them back into education. But we have to start with connection. We have to do it with the check-in. We have to identify where are they socially and emotionally so that we can then move to content, because we're dealing with grief. Again, we're dealing with trauma. We're dealing with transitions that we never anticipated. And there's just so many things that are on the horizon. I mean, per the government, is like the paycheck protection, that's probably not what it's called. Like the house, people might start getting evicted soon. So then we might have the added layer of homelessness. And in Texas, we know that's a big thing. So what I'd like to do is get to one of our first questions. And I want to pose it to our administrators. How can administrators help to ease the fear of returning back to school for face-to-face instruction?
I'm mute.
Mute, yeah, Chase, you on mute.
So I had to look at this question from two different perspectives. You know, I looked at it as an administrator and also looked at it as a parent. As an administrator, we want our kids to feel safe when they come into the building. We want them to feel secure. We want them to feel loved. And we want them to have that family feel when they come into the building. Do I feel that it's going to be the same when they walk into the building this term? No. Because honestly, a pre-kindergartner or a kindergartner seeing me with a face shield on, gloves, a mask, that's not welcoming to them.
Right.
So one of the things I was thinking about as a parent, what would I want my child to see when he comes in? Like, I'm going to paint faces on my mask so it shows that I'm happy. We won't be able to give hugs. So we'll do, some of my teachers do a thing that they do a fist bump, or arm bump, or, you know, kick your feet, do something that's not necessarily touching with the hands, but something that makes them feel welcome, even an air hug. And it's going to be hard for me because honestly, I do bus duty in the morning, and when my kids get off the bus, I'm hugging, I'm smiling, welcome back, all of those things. So it's going to take some time to get used to, but just again, reassuring the kids that we are there for them and we're still here and we're still the same people we were last year. It's just a little bit different in how we're going to be able to communicate physically with each other versus how we were before. As an administrator towards a parent, the first week that we were off, or not off, closed with the building, I tried to reach out to all of my kids in my grade levels and call their parents, check in, see how you're doing. And again, helping them, because some parents don't know what questions to ask in order to get the help that they need. So being that first point of reaching out and communicating with them to let them know that we're here for whatever they may need, whether, you know, it's food assistance or rent assistance or just someone to talk to. But making sure that we're that first point of contact, but it's going to be more positive because it's coming from me and I'm just doing a check-in. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Right. And what can help. So as an administrator, as a parent, I would like for someone to call and say, hey, everything's going to be fine. The kids are great. I'm going to be great at school. If you need anything, reach out to me. Okay. That's something as a parent I would want.
Right. Will?
So as an I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hold on. Let's get Will right quick. Let me go to you, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely coming from an administrator perspective and more on a central office level. And I think a lot of people don't always realize the type of work that's happening behind the scenes to be able to support teachers and leaders, and that, you know, trainings have to still take place and folks have to have an idea of what's actually, you know, going on and what that plan is. And so the first piece, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, parents as well as students and anybody who's watching that, make sure you have a certain level of grace for those individuals behind the scenes. You know what I mean? I think that's really, really important because they're getting a lot of different type of information that, and the information is coming at varying times. And we have to realize we're at a moment where we're at an interesting paradox where things are speeding up, but also slowing down, where we are also waiting for things to come down the pipe, coming down from state to the district to the actual school. So I think that's the first piece that I want to make sure we offer just everybody, that like we offer each other grace and particularly those administrators who are trying to come up with the plans. But there are three things that I was thinking about. First is sensitive communication, making sure that you're very sensitive in the way you're communicating to folks, how you're communicating to folks, being considerate of the population that you're dealing with. Second of all, realistic transparency. You know what I mean? I think that we have to be very transparent at this stage, but at the same time, we have to be aware of what's going to rile folks up or how it might be misperceived if certain information is let out. And then finally, just really naming the flexibility that you're doing both as an administrator and as well as both with the experience of the community. Flexibility is going to be key. You know, Bruce Lee said, you know, be like water. And I think that that's going to have to, you know, live in a lot of people in this time period. And so, you know, those would be like the three things that I would, you know, let people know from an administrator's perspective.
Okay.
And I have to
go ahead.
I have to agree with Will in regards to the transparency. I think that, like he did say, different things are coming up, like down the pipeline. We're also waiting on county judges to make decisions. So all of that is very important for the community, for them to understand, because I know a lot of parents do want their students to go back to school, but they also have to understand that, you know, sometimes the superintendents have to make decisions based on the well-being of others. I also believe that validating the students and the parents would also help during this transition to back to school. So I really give kudos to the administrators because they have been really working long hours and creating a plan with the district personnel to open up safely.
Okay. Counselors, what is it looking like? Like what would you think would be one of the main foci that we need to focus on for when our students return virtually, hopefully first, and eventually into the building?
I think just, you know, introducing yourselves again, you know, for those returning students, you know, greeting them, letting them know, hey, I missed you, you know, just being human and being relatable to students, being human and relatable to parents, anyone that you're receiving into your building. We have students that deal with a lot of anxiety that is probably elevated. We have students that are going to be ready to run into the building. They're so happy to be back. Then we have other students that may have been fine last year, but are not even willing to get out of the car this year. You know, so there's so many different things that you just have to be ready for, and just be there for those parents to let them know, hey, I understand. I know this is a difficult situation, but just be there to lend a hand with an open ear, ready to listen, and just ready to comfort them in any way you can and provide whatever resources.
Okay. Totally agree.
I think I can add to that as well. I mean, serving as a resource to the students, making sure you look at their social emotional needs, also considering and addressing some of the different things that they went through, because sometimes our children, they bring the outside factors inside the building. So you have to be prepared to work with those and help them cope and deal with those situations, not just for the students, but you also have teachers who have certain things that they're bringing inside the building as well.
I agree. Yvette?
I also agree that we do have to support them in the building, but we're also going to have to support them virtually, because we're going to have students that are doing online courses, and they may have emotional needs that we need to attend to. So one thing that we did do during this other semester that we, after spring break, we didn't come back, we did virtual. We were calling all of our students on a regular basis. We set up a Google page and a Google form asking them, hey, if you need to talk to your counselor, please fill this out. That way we could go out and we could call them and reach out to them. So we're going to have a lot of legwork that we need to do both on campus and virtually to make sure that all of our students' needs are being met and we're able to communicate with them and their parents, because like you all said, that we are probably going to have a high rate of homelessness because my campus is a Title I campus, and our parents are essential workers. So they're out there every single day putting their lives at risk just to, put food on the table and pay the rent. So we need to be sensitive to those needs.
Right, and I can add to everything that you all have offered. That's exactly what it looked like for me. Well, as y'all know, I've been in the States unattended since February. So I've been doing counseling work with the 13-hour differential with my students in China. Some of them in China, some of them in other countries, some of them in the United States. So it's really been a hodgepodge of how do we meet the needs of the students that I can't physically sit in front of and provide that level of comfort that they've needed when we were in the building. So it's what services am I continuing in a virtual space? How am I getting in contact with them? How am I educating them and their parents on some of the things that they're probably experiencing, from, you know, complex grief to, like Keisha said, heightened anxiety, food insecurity, self-harm, troubles with dysregulation, not knowing, you know, not knowing how to set a routine, because most of the time the school does all that. Like,
Right.
we're more than just houses of education. And I think that the world has seen educators and the school system, public school system, play so many vital roles in the lives of not just our children, not just the educators, but families as well. Because as Yvette said, I've only worked in Title I schools. It's very different from me in Beijing because my children's families are highly affluent. So they don't they don't have the economic pressures, but they definitely have the social emotional stress that our students have in the schools that we occupy right now. So it's kind of looking at it from a holistic perspective. And one thing that I noticed is we're all literally saying the same thing as administrators, counselors, and, you know, parents, of course, and it's collaboration. What does that look like in a collaborative sense? How are we optimizing our strengths so that we can put out the best product and provide the best service for our most, you know, prized possessions, which obviously is our children. So I want to kind of spin it and talk to parents. And I'll start with Jerry. You sent me a really good question. And what I wanted to look at was, when it comes to teachers, how are we ensuring, you know, one of the parents, how are we ensuring that teachers are meeting the needs in a highly, what we call it, they have to be, the word escapes me, highly capable way,
Right.
even though they're experiencing the same stuff that we're literally experiencing too. So Jerry was wondering about that. Like, what are you wanting to see and obviously this is for all the parents, when it comes from the quality of instruction that your child will be receiving in a virtual sense?
Okay, so I'm gonna base it off of what I experienced at the end of last year, just like everybody else. It was about spring break when everybody kind of broke and never came back. And so when McKenzie schools, maybe like a week or so before spring break, they had another break right around that time, and they never came back from that break. But from my experience, it was like communication was a big thing. When they were in school, teachers only communicated when there were issues, and it was only like very spotty. More or less, it would be like, oh, if your kid is failing, you only hear from a teacher then. And I'm not saying she would go through that, but this is just like when I talk to the parents. I try to stay engaged keep in touch with parents, and we'll talk and discuss like what we're going through. And so it's like the communication I got when they were in school is like, oh, we have all these students. We don't have time to be contacting parents like this. And I'm thinking, well, man, when I was in school, you didn't turn in a homework assignment. The teacher was sending a note home. They're contacting the parents. They're really making sure to let your parents know, hey, she didn't turn in her homework. We got a problem. Now it's like nobody has time for this. So this is my concern now that we're going virtual. Like, this is what we were doing before we were virtual. So now it's like, okay, we're virtual now. I feel like I'm scared that we're going to get blown off even more, because it's like, y'all have a lot of work y'all going to be doing. Like, it's going to get even harder. It's going to take a lot of time management. It's going to take a lot of organization skills, you know, and it's going to take a lot of off the clock work, you know, to try to facilitate and provide, you know, a virtual learning experience for these kids. Because in our counties, they're going 100% virtual. We're not going back to school.
Right.
And so, and then even if it was up to me, she wasn't going back to school because I have my 91-year-old grandmother that lives at the house and I can't take that chance. And, you know, she was sad and I had to have a talk with her, but that's just kind of, you know, how life goes. Everybody's home situation is very different. So that's where that question stemmed from. Is like, you know, my family's in education. My mom's an administrator. My sister's a counselor. I understand both sides, but, you know, I try to work with schools and teachers and administrators, and I try not to run to the principal when I'm having issues, and I try to work with the teachers and set meetings and do all of that. But it's a struggle, you know, even being that type of active parent to get feedback all the time. You know, sometimes teachers, I get it. Y'all have lives, y'all got kids, you got to go home. But, you know, it's like at some point you want them to make time for me. I'm not telling you to, you know, completely push your life to the side, but it's almost like they don't even want to deal with it. You know, and they only want to grade papers and do what they got to do and meet checklists and let's go and keep it moving.
Right.
And that's just, I'm tired of it.
Right.
Because I do so much.
I can hear the frustration I do. So Will wanted to make a point.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, you know, being educators, sometimes we're very biased to what we're expecting from the school sometimes. And sometimes we may give more grace than necessary. But it's interesting, when I take off my educator's hat and put on my parent hat, I have a 4-year-old who's going to be in pre-K 4 this year, and kind of seeing how the last part of the year went in pre-K 3. One of the biggest things that I want to push teachers to do, whether the school has the structure for it or not, is really find one-on-one time with the students. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I'm not sure exactly, even like we're figuring out as we go how these Zoom lessons are going to go with all these different students in the class. But when you have opportunities to have one-on-one, even if it's like a 15-minute block, you know, of the day where you're just going to go one-on-one with that individual, talk with that individual, dialogue, develop that relationship, I think that's going to go really, really huge during this digital time, is how teachers develop that one-on-one relationship. Obviously, it's going to be a brave new world with the multiple folks in a Zoom room. But if there's ways that they could figure out to really develop that personal relationship and really let them know that they're being supported even from a distance, I think that's going to be huge as it relates to a parent, because I know that getting that interaction is really key. That, like, for example, at pre-K 4, you know, I took for granted that my child looks at the calendar every day. And they sing a song about what day it is and go through the numbers. I don't do that every day. I didn't do that every day during the quarantine. And so, you know, the fact that self-awareness is so huge at that age, where kids just need to know what day it is and where they're at. You know, even as an educator who's been an educator, who's been an elementary school principal, that kind of, you know, went in one year and left the other. So I just think that's me being a parent, thinking about that one-on-one relationship. I hope that teachers really develop this year during this distant mode.
Yeah. And I can tell, go ahead, Chase.
Well, and this is where, like, that grace part comes in, because it happens so quickly. Like, teachers really, and school districts across the world had to come to something, and quick, because we had a week. We were out on spring break. They closed for 5 days, building closed, you know, district closed, and then we were back on. So the format that my son had was, his teacher would do a video, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then they would have some activity, and he'd push it through Google Documents and then be done. And he had one assignment per class. And it might have taken him 15 to 20 minutes tops. In that format, did he learn? Was he an honest learner? I'm going to say absolutely no. Absolutely not. It was, let me get this done and turned in. And what was I as a parent? I need you to get that done, turn it in. But I think moving forward, now that we have had this time over the summer to look at the different avenues, the different apps, the different platforms that educators can use, I think it's going to be very different. I know we're talking about asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. Asynchronous, the teacher is still going to be teaching now. Right. It's not going to be that format of, here's your 3-minute video, you watch it and you go about your business. It's going to be actual teaching, and I feel that even though it's going to be virtual, he should still be able to grasp that format, because he's been in the classroom. You know, you have to make the environment similar. So he has a desk, he has a chair, he has his pencils, he has everything that he needs for that particular period. And I do believe that it's going to be a different feel for him during this time, because he's going to have to, like, go into each class, each period, it's going to take some organizational skills. It's going to take some dedication on his part, because unfortunately, I won't even be home. I have to go to the building. So as a parent, I'm like, I am praying that my child has the get up, the know-how to just stay focused during that time so he can get his lessons. But I do think this time around, we have a little bit better platform. As for parents, I know his teachers would call every week, and I'm like, can you just text me? Like, because I'm in meetings, you're in meetings. So we also need to figure out how parents want to be communicated with, and during what times, because everybody is not, we're going to have to be flexible. Like you said, it's going to be very fluid. And parents are going to have to be very flexible. My son going into middle school, I know I have to stay on top of his teachers. And sometimes teachers feel that, especially since you're an administrator in the same district, then they will do a little bit extra. But I tend not to tell them anything, because I want to see. I want him to succeed on his own, but I also want you to hold him accountable, regardless of who his parent is. So that's another thing that we also have to work on as parents and as educators, that we are going to hold our kids accountable, and parents, I understand, I have to pull up, I go to work from 8 or 7:30 to 5:30. And for 2 hours every day, once I come home, I'm going to be working with my son. So that's another sacrifice that as a parent I have to make, but also as an educator. So it's just going to be something different. But again, be enthusiastic about it. It's something that might, our kids may benefit from. Building the relationships that is like the absolute thing that cannot go away. It is that 15 minutes before we start. I want to know, how was your weekend? I want to know, what did you eat, or what's your favorite food? We still have to build in that time. Yeah. It cannot just be straight curriculum, because the kids are not going to be engaged with that. If they don't know that you care, y'all know that whole cliche, then guess what? They don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Right. And I wanted to take what you all just offered and kind of segue. I heard so many things as far as how the counselors are going to respond to every single need that you all just expressed. And so I want to just kind of give an overview of what social emotional learning is. Not that you don't know, but we have people that are watching that may not. And I'll read Castle's definition of social emotional learning verbatim, and it is the process through which children and adults, because we still as adults have to learn about social emotional stuff, understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. And that is literally encompassing everything that we just touched on. So the 5 SEL competencies are going to be self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And it's kind of like you can't extrapolate one without affecting the others. They're all interconnected. So when I hear, when I'm at work, is my son gonna be doing what he's supposed to do? What he knows I expect? Is he self-aware enough moving into middle school to be able to do that and do it with fidelity? And I can honestly say, as somebody that has worked 6th through 8th grade middle, probably not, right? And that's not to take away from any parenting or how wonderful your children are. We know that these skills are skills that they have to be taught. And a lot of times, parents may not be aware of, how do I do that on this end when they don't have that faith? Like Will said, I need to be telling them whatever day of the week is, because that's not something that I was aware that they were doing. So it's like, how do we then, as educators, take these particular competencies that I just, mentioned, and how do we dive deep into that? And I want to pose that to the counselors. What, for you, will the social emotional aspects look like when we do move into a virtual space and then transition to face-to-face instruction?
I'd say just creating ways to check in with your students, creating ways for students to communicate with you when they're having that I'm not okay experience, or I'm stressed out, or I'm worried about some things, either personally or educationally. Providing a space for students to communicate with you, talking to them about how to respond or act in a virtual environment when you're in front of other students and you don't want to be embarrassed or whatever, just giving them the tools that they need so that they can perform academically, but then also supporting them and leaving that door open for them to be able to communicate with you throughout the day, or even sometimes if it has to be, in the evening, because with this virtual situation, a lot of us learned that, just like in a regular school year, your hours during the day may extend an hour and a half to 2 hours after hours. So you just have to be, like he said, transparent with students and, teach them how to communicate what they need to you.
I agree.
And I guess to add to that, I know the idea about teaching students how to communicate effectively, and sometimes we need to teach parents how to communicate effectively, how to listen effectively, how to understand, because sometimes I've talked to students before where they kind of have to lead the conversation with the parent, because you have to think about it. A lot of parents have not had anyone to have those conversations with them before. So how are you going to be able to have those conversations with your child? So what happens in some aspects to where if I have a crisis or whatever, and there's a situation where a parent has to come in, well, when we were doing face-to-face, I would sometimes have to kind of talk to the parent and explain and coach the parent on how to deal with the situation, how to handle the situation, which would be best suited for the child. So it's just a lot of ongoing conversations that need to be happening, availability and transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and with that, I would add that making sure that we have created systems, collaboratively as an administrative team, which the counselors are. The only place counselors aren't a part of the administrative team is in China, which I don't understand, but anyway. That we have identified systems, we figure out like what the problem is. We know like that backwards planning, this is the outcome that we want. So what are the processes that we're gonna put in place to address these needs? If I do have a child, how are we gonna address their needs at the beginning of the year? I don't know what the needs are. We know what collective needs might be, but are we gonna have Google Forms? What's the platform that we're gonna use? Are we gonna be doing, videos for our kids? Are we going to be doing virtual meetings for our parents? I get the sense that there will be lots of limitations, but we have so many opportunities to envision additional ways in which to connect and to communicate, because literally everybody has a phone.
Mm-hmm.
So we can come up with collectively so many different opportunities to make connection, to build community, because that is going to be one of the things that we have to focus on, is creating trauma-informed schools. And most of our schools are Title I, so there might be trauma-informed processes, but maybe they aren't as intentional as they will have to be moving forward. So having trauma-informed schools, teaching teachers, what does a trauma-informed classroom look like, not only in the building, but virtually as well? And I'm gonna move it to another question in just a second. Y'all know I hear mental health in everything. So one thing I would hope that we can focus on is how are we attending to the mental health needs of kids, educators, and parents as well? It's gonna be a lot of work, because you might have disgruntled parents. You are the object. You are the thing standing right there or on the phone, but they really upset about the fact that rent's due, I feel sick, where do I quarantine, I can't get a test, I wanna vote, and I'm afraid. So life is really getting in the way. And what does that look like for educators that are burnt out, that are afraid? And we know the landscape that we're living in right now. So how solution focused, knowing that we can't please everyone, are we going to be moving forward? Because we know that we have the best needs for our students at heart. That's number one, or we wouldn't be in the industry that we're in. It's how do we come together to first identify what do you need, and how can we meet that need, and how do we then evaluate if the systems that we're inputting are actually working? What's the outcome data? Does anyone want to speak to that?
I think it's important to always think ahead of what situations may arise. You know, you think about what you deal with in a typical or traditional school year where we're not in this virtual situation. And I'm a lead counselor, so I work throughout the school year, even in the summertime.
Right.
Plus or minus a few days. But the most important thing is just planning ahead. I've experienced some phone calls with parents in the last few days where they're like, how am I going to do this? You know, how am I going to do this and go to work? And I have multiple students, you know, ranging from high school all the way to elementary school. How am I going to support my kids and still go to work? What happens when I need to talk to a teacher? And at the beginning of the year, you know, one thing I can say is our district has worked so hard to make sure that we have all trained ourselves and learned as much as we can. You know, just the first thing, communicating with parents at the beginning of the year, you know, through orientations, even if you can't do a live orientation, videos, having it available for them to go to if they have to work and miss a meeting. You have to plan for every possible situation that might arise. And you have to make sure that parents know that that information is out there for them. Second is also just making sure that you have frequent follow-ups. And that gets hard, you know, when you're a teacher or an administrator or a counselor, that gets really hard. Even a parent, you know, following up, but you have to make sure that you follow up with those parents. And then be willing to train and teach parents as well with all of the different forms of communication, with all of the different emails, the same emails, with our experience with our daughter. I'd like the welcome email that you're going to send my student about how to interact and do her work within the class and what time the chat, you know, the video classes are or whatever it is. I'd like that same email that you send her so that I can keep up and create my own calendar and make sure that she's staying up, you know, on top of everything that she needs to do. You know, so just planning ahead and making sure that we have thought of every possible thing. And then as we, you know, get to certain situations that we, you know, oh, we didn't think about that, or we haven't had this situation before, thinking quickly or coming together as a team to work whatever out that we need to so that we can support everyone, whether it's a teacher or an administrator or even a student.
Right. Exactly. It's creating those systems and those processes. And I hear when you say that is letting parents know that we haven't forgotten about them. And I think the perspective taking that you all have is that you have these multiple roles. Not only are you in the education system, but you're also a parent. So it's being able to come together and share those feelings, thoughts, that just, you know, the same things you want, we are searching for as well. So we're in the same boat. So how can we continue to support one another? Given that feeling of we're again, collaboration, we're collaborating with each other. So then I wanted to, what are y'all looking forward to when school comes back? Like, what's gonna be the high point for you?
Kids.
Right.
It honestly, it's the kids. Like, my kids are hilarious. I was not an elementary person. I was always in middle school, and going as an elementary AP, it's just, I mean, they're just like gushy. Like they've softened me, which I love. But they're happy when they see you, and they just want to know that you're there. So that's one of the big things that I'm looking forward to seeing. But I'm also just looking forward to seeing the creativity that my teachers come up with in order to keep those kids engaged, whether it's virtually or face-to-face. We had a lot of teachers go out and, you know, buy new things and do the glitz and glam. And I mean, literally for a 3-minute video, it is glamorous. And I'm like, okay, that's what I need. That, you know, that's something that I look forward to, because it not only, it was a scary thing because we had a lot of educators who were not familiar with using technology as much, but it forced them to get into that realm. And now that they're in that realm, it's like, oh, this is so much easier. It's so much organized. Like, I can put this here and I can save this. So I think that is going to be one of the biggest things to see as well. And just, again, how can I support them with that? Because I'm learning as well too. while they're teaching through Schoology, I'm going through Schoology. I'm going and doing grades and looking at things like that. So I think it's just a learning curve. So that's, again, that brings me back to my word of being enthusiastic about it because I'm learning something new.
Right.
With that.
Jerry, what about you? Thank you, Chase. Jerry and then Yvette.
Hey, okay, so say the question again.
What are you looking forward to when school resumes?
I'm looking forward to meeting her teachers. She's getting a new round of teachers and she's going to the 7th grade and just trying to establish a working rapport with them since we're 100% virtual. So just trying to come up with, I want to talk to them and kind of explain the type of student she is, because I already know by now her challenges and the things that she's working through, you know,
Right.
as a middle schooler, and just trying to come up with a plan so that this year could go smoothly. Like I just, you know, I'm working on things so that she's prepared for high school, because to me, middle school is just a preparation for high school, you know, coming from elementary.
Yeah, it is, but I'll say as, again, someone's on middle school, it is a huge transitionary period, and they not only like education-wise, but responsibility-wise, but hormonally. So there's a lot that they're having to navigate as kids, because they are very much kids. And I think a lot of times we get in the mindset this is preparation for high school, not really understanding that we have to, you know, wrap around them and help them cultivate who they are as individuals, unique individuals, self-aware, functioning, healthy, emotion-wise, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, all these different things in a span of, well, depending on how your system is structured, I'll just say a span of 3 years, there is so much growth that takes place from 6th grade to 8th grade. I remember my first job at Drew. When your kids come in at 6th grade, we already know they babies. They, just a little snotty nose. And they're like completely different by the time they're in 8th grade, hopefully more mature, you know, and a lot more studious and harder working, but trying not to rush those delicate years because high school is very fast paced. Did anyone else want to have Yvette?
What I'm going to be excited for is seeing my frequent flyers. I miss them. Even though they're your frequent flyers, you miss them. And you just want to see them and see what they're up to, and just to make sure that they're safe and have that, you know, one-on-one conversation with them, whether it is if they're going to do it virtually, or our district has a choice where they can do virtual or come face-to-face as of now. So that's what I'm looking forward to, just reconnecting with my students.
Awesome. Everyone has to respond to this one. This is the easy one.
Well, I guess I have 2 things. I look forward to seeing the kids in school. I look forward to bothering the kids. I bother the kids, and it's to the point where I truly, I treasure it because it builds relationships. They become more comfortable. They're not afraid to come talk to me. So I look forward to that. I look forward to the talk, and I look forward to the laughing. I also look forward to just what I expect, just the idea of trying to build a relationship even when it's virtual. Find different ways to reach out, find different ways that they know we're thinking about you, we miss you. But overall, I also I miss seeing the teachers. I miss seeing my co-counselors. I mean, we have a lot of fun, even though the job can be, you know, stressful, but we have fun. Mm-hmm. So those are things I look forward to. Those are things I miss.
Thank you.
Yes, I have to agree with Yvette. I miss seeing those students that, you know, were always in our office, or the ones that we worried about. Those are the ones that I'm really looking forward to seeing. The ones that, you know, we reached out to during the beginning of the pandemic that we could never reach on the phone or by email, you know, just those students that you are always thinking of. So I'm looking forward to that. And of course, you know, interacting with the staff.
Yeah. Will?
I guess for me, it's a little bit different. Like I said, I work in central office. So honestly, I'm really looking forward to supporting, you know, assistant principals and teachers. You know, like I hold sacred that relationship that teachers have in these classrooms, and that I understand that, you know, it really takes the support of the leaders and individuals that are beyond the teacher as well to make sure that teacher-student relationship is great. And so for me, I was able to develop a lot of great coaching relationships with teachers to make sure that they had support as it relates to science, because particularly for a lot of younger, early childhood teachers, they don't have a lot of science background. And so for someone to be able to, you know, kind of break it down to them, be able to coach them through it, I think it's really, really great and exciting. So I'm really excited to see what type of new challenges and how I can really flex and support them during this, you know, really, really trying time.
Right. So what am I looking forward to? Well, I'm looking forward to getting back to China. I'm going to be in a new school. So the one thing that I really enjoy about a new year is when I was teaching was learning all the names of my students. As a counselor, that's a bit more difficult, but as Yvette and Nikisha stated, you know the ones that require that extra love, that extra push. And while I love all the kids, those are definitely my favorite because you can see the change. Like you can see the growth that just an additional hello or thank you or redirection, you know, helps them grow as individuals and as many humans. So I'm really I miss the student connection. Like I miss being in the halls. I miss urging them to class. I miss sitting in my office and just letting them be, right? It's the kids. I miss the kids. And one thing I do appreciate about the kids is that with every child, there's a parent or a guardian that we get the opportunity to help grow in the areas that they feel that they want to improve upon, and just really to help them see their children as separate individuals that are growing into their own, and not necessarily extensions of who they want them to be. So that parent education piece is one that I really appreciate and that I miss as well. So we're going to transition. I know that there was something that Will wanted to share specifically, so I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to talk about it as soon as I can find it. Okay, what? Oh, is that it? It might not happen. Y'all know I am not techie. Oh, there it is. All right, so this is what happens when you have technical difficulty. Yes. So I am having some trouble with sharing this. I don't know why.
What is it doing? What are you trying to share?
So it shows these like the warning label. It won't actually show the actual.
Oh, like it's kind of disconnected or something. So why don't you close out wherever it is and reopen it?
The PowerPoint or
yeah.
Okay.
If you want to share your screen, allow me to share. I can share my screen as well.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You have it.
You have to give me permission though.
Oh, y'all have me do all of this. How you do that?
I think you go to the.
Let's just say share.
Do I make you a co-host?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that might do it.
Yes. Y'all, this is real life. This will happen in your virtual classroom.
It will happen in the classroom. It's okay.
How did you do it and I couldn't do it?
All right.
So I kind of wanted to just talk briefly about. I put tired down on my paper because I've been in grad school classes for the entire week since Sunday, and I'm working on my doctoral degree in educational leadership at the University of Pennsylvania. And I'm in a program called the Mid-Career Program where I'm able to interact with superintendents, mostly principals, but also those who are leading, nonprofit organizations, independent schools, and so on. And so we did a kind of like a mini study on each other this past week in regards to what we're thinking in regards to educational leadership. And these are some of the things that I kind of pulled out of some of the research that we did. And we found out that it was really, really around this idea of response and this idea of processing this response in regards to what we want to do. And obviously you can see here that this instructional expectation is kind of tucked away, lost in the midst of it, but obviously everything directly impacts it. You have this, first part of it where it talks about the response to the pandemic challenge, which is a lot for educational leaders external. And a lot of those things that we talked about earlier are decisions that are being made with limited information, and they're trying to take consideration of physical health. But obviously, you know what I mean, it's taking a lot for people to be flexible. And with that flexible mindset, I think that this is what raises this idea of mental health and what people's mental health is in regards to processing this actual pandemic. And this is the internal issues that folks are dealing with. And not just that, as educational leaders, whether you're a principal, whether you're assistant principal, or even a school counselor, you're toggling between these two pieces, these internal, external challenges, where you're trying to come up with proactive, reactive supports for your stakeholders, but at the same time, you're trying to make sure you stay specific to your role as a counselor, as a principal, and those have very specific avenues of impact. And so then, as I think more about what parents have to deal with, I've been working on this model called the 3M model over the last couple of years, and I've been applying this to coaching, but also I've been applying it to just creating a learning community in your household. And so I think one big piece that families as well as students just have to realize is that you have to position yourselves as learners, and particularly in an inquiry stance, where understanding that nobody really has this thing down right now. And so once you do that, I think that if you hit these 3 M's, and obviously this is going to live differently with different people and look differently, but I think this is a good kind of mental checklist that folks can think about as they start to develop what it's going to look like in this distant model with some of your kids at home. So thinking about what management, protocols or systems do you have in your household? What ways are you going to monitor that? And I think one of the most important things, what levels of motivation are you going to have? How are you going to be creative and make sure that it's personalized and unique to your specific child, and that you're using your intuition when to use it, not just kind of using it in a superficial surface level way, which we can sometimes as parents. But also the monitoring, I think, is going to be really, really key, that we have to start to really think about, and how logical the monitoring is going to be. What, is it going to be realistic, how fair it is, and making sure that accountability system is clearly communicated to the kids in the household. And I think that when you look at the interplay between these 3 M's, management, monitoring, and motivation, this is where parents are really going to have to really take a space of inquiry and understand that, look, I don't know how this is going to look, and I don't know how this may be in the next couple months, but I have to at least have these 3 buckets really, really kind of tight knit in my head, so that my child can have an experience that won't cause major gaps. As we know, things are gonna happen, but those major gaps, particularly when it comes to really having a system which schools are supposed to be able to create, is going to be possibly lacking with this distant model. So I just wanted to share that kind of visual to the group to kind of get the idea of what administrators are really trying to think about and model, and that the fact that this is all changing. We're creating hybrid models right now in my institution, and now the governor is saying that he might do all virtual. And so, like, me as a science director has to ensure that whatever supports I'm giving teachers really supports a 100% virtual model. And like I said before, I don't think we've created the science for how we do Zoom classrooms yet. So I think that's all ever changing. And so once again, I think there's a lot of moving pieces taking place. And I hope that as leaders and as teachers out there, like I said, you guys give us some grace in regards to really figuring out and understand that we're really trying to do the best thing for families and students.
I agree. I really like that graphic. It really speaks to the interconnectedness of all the roles that we're having to serve, and how I think it shows areas in which we can input solutions and processes to help our families. So I'm wondering if you're at a stage that you're willing to share the 3M model, or do you? Okay. So what's going to happen after we finish our panel tonight is on my business Facebook page, I am going to post resources for parents and educators, along with Will's wonderful 3M model, that you can then go and do what you want with that, and help with your home learning, hopefully help with school systems as you all are planning things. But I really appreciate you showing that and helping us understand the framework behind what it's going to look like and how we're able to be successful in these multiple roles. So I kind of want to move it toward a more social emotional space. When we think about social emotional learning, one thing that really comes to mind is growth mindset and resilience. So I would like to know from you all's perspective, what does growth mindset mean to you? And what does it look like when you apply it into the actual setting that we're working with?
Okay, so I'll go. So like a growth mindset is, to me, literally what it is. Like you're continuing to learn, you're continuing to be optimistic, you're continuing to be hopeful, you're continuing to take risks that are going to benefit the masses as a whole. Right. So to me, that's what a growth mindset is. Like I'm going to continue to learn, continue to do, continue to see, so I can be better, so I can make my students better, I can make my teachers better. And the second part was, what'd you say?
How will that look, you know, when it's becoming applicable into the school? And we'll go with virtual school.
How will it look? Honestly, it's that flexibility piece and us being able to, I hate to say this way in education, but to go by the seat of your pants, because everything is changing. Like minute-wise, hour-wise, there's always a change. So with that change, you have to be flexible and be willing to make a change in order to meet the needs of those kids. So it may be that we're reading about, let's just say, I don't know, Moby Dick, whatever. You're reading about that, and in the moment, there's something about a huge, you know, hurricane coming towards Texas. Well, that's the time I'm gonna sit down and say, hey, I know we've been through some things before, guys. I know we had Harvey, we had Rita, we had this. How are you feeling right now? How do you feel the characters like it's all bringing it together, making it relevant to those kids, but also engaging them in how they feel about what's currently going on. Yeah. And just that mindset of saying, it's okay to do this. It's okay to veer off from the curriculum sometimes in order to get your kids to feel more comfortable with you, to be able to talk with them. It's okay for that, because again, they won't learn unless they know that you're really into it. If you're not engaged in what you're teaching, they don't care. If you're not really bringing it to their level and making it relatable and understandable to them, then they don't care, and they won't. They're going to log out. Or, you know, I seen a kid write, it was funny, like he was connecting and he spelled it wrong, but it was like Wi-Fi connecting. You know, you're gonna get kids like that. So you just really have to have that growth mindset of change and being flexible.
Yes,
and I think that growth mindset is also, you know, I agree with what Chase said about the willingness to learn and try new things, but also the willingness to not rely on everything that we've done the same thing in the past before, and be willing to not rely on that, but just know that, you know, we have to stop and move forward, and also be willing to recognize when things don't work, that we're willing to, okay, we have to stop that right now. We need to do something else, or we need to figure out or learn how to do this, so that, again, like she said, do better for the masses, for yourself as, you know, a parent, an administrator, you know, counselor, whoever you are, and for the students, and just move forward with whatever works better.
Yvette?
I also agree with what they said, and having a growth mindset not only is it that we're willing to do, but also being able to accept, you know what, this didn't work, let's go ahead and try something, and then be resilient. Right. You're able to look back and reflect and see, you know what, this just didn't meet these students' needs. So going back to the drawing board and being okay with it, pretty much. Yeah. Being able to grow from what you've experienced.
Yeah, I wanted to add that I think, you know, when you think about growth mindset, you really have to think about positionality, particularly in how adults are interacting with students. And I think that we as adults are really going to have to take a step back and become learners again, as it relates to being having a growth mindset, as you know, to students, to our own professional development. And so really looking closer about what knowledge is now. You know what I mean? Knowledge isn't just what the research says. Knowledge just isn't your own experience. Knowledge is a combination of both, with a little bit of improvisation in the middle. And so I think that, individuals going to have to really be aware that knowledge is being generated, even if we think that it's not being generated, particularly by the youngest individuals. And while, we think that, sometimes because students may be distant, that they're not learning, we need to always understand that students are learning, even if they're not learning what we want them to learn.
Right.
Their brains are constantly moving. They're constantly making connections. That, if we don't direct them to read certain things, they are going to, figure out, something to read. And so, and look into and explore. So I think that it's really, really key for us to understand that we as adults now have to really position ourselves with the inquiry mindset to be like, what can I learn from kids and how can I reciprocate that throughout this process?
And to kind of add to what Will said, this is a very pivotal time in education. And the reason why, because education is changing right before us. It's becoming to the point where it's going to go online. So what's going to have to happen is teachers have to learn new ways to teach. And what's going to have to happen is that parents are going to have to find a way to learn the different avenues of the online. Prime example, report cards. And our district, we used to hand out report cards. I can almost guarantee you that's going to be a thing of the past.
Right.
Where parents will have to log on. They will have to just gain some type of computer savvy in order to be able to operate those things. And one thing I would say about our district is they're doing a lot of different things to try to help parents to transition to the online era, because now, us printing report cards and sending report cards home, all those different things are a thing of the past. So one thing I tell parents all the time is if you have an engaged parent, I can guarantee you that you're going to have an engaged kid. And what's going to happen also is that it doesn't matter if the parent has a college degree, high school degree.
Right.
A lot of times the parent sets the educational tone within that house. And it's necessary because as educators, we need the help of that parent. We need them. Just like they need us, we need each other. We gotta form a partnership with one another.
Jerry?
So as a parent, I like what everybody said. But like what Yvette was saying, just being able to be willing to go back to the drawing board on anything and not really, be open into criticism, be open to trying new things, because with parents, it's like we're kind of becoming student teachers.
Yeah.
And so the end of last school year was a struggle for me. I got a college degree and it was tough. Like, trying to help your kids, like you can't really teach your kids because, they don't really want to hear from you as a parent. It's like it's hard for us because we never really had to do it. And then when we do it, it's a fight. So now it's like you have to, and it's trying to come up with ways to reach your kids from a parent's perspective, being effective to them to help them when they're struggling, because you can't bombard the teacher. I mean, you're in a virtual setting, you understand the teachers, we're all struggling in this. So to me, it's just looking, like I try to talk to friends and I try to stay abreast with the teaching staff and everything. And with me, it's just, and then with my child, it's like learning the type of student she is, not comparing her to me when I was in school and how I was, and just realizing like who she is and what she needs. Right. She's very different from me. She may be smart, but she's a different type of learner. And then the way that they teach now is different from how we were taught. So, the way that I would teach her math, they're not teaching it that way. And then it's a fight because it's like, she doesn't believe me. It's like, I got a degree in math, but you don't believe me. So it's like you have to, like, to me, it's like coming with an equilibrium of being kind of stress-free approach, and just kind of me with growth mindset is like learning my shortcomings so that I could be able to use that to overcome, to help her, because this is all for my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell her all the time, I have my degrees, I did it all. So, this is for you, but I got to find a way to reach her.
Yeah.
Because like with her being in middle school, I'm learning like with, I can't remember what the guy in the purple shirt, his name is, but I'm sorry. But he made a very good point. And what I'm learning with my daughter is just trying to, I have to meet her where she is and not where I am. and just really just being realistic about what's going on, you know, and, you know, not setting these unrealistic expectations and not speaking over her head. And just, you know, I'm realizing during this virtual time, you have to really speak to your kids and really explain and get them to understand what's going on, because she wants to go back to school. I want her to go back to school. I know it's not safe. So I wouldn't, if they did let them, I still wouldn't let her do it. But I have to sit down and let her and explain that to her and let her know it's like, it's not because I don't want you to, but this is a potential issue. Like, if you go to school, what if something happens to grandma? I mean, how would you feel about that? You know, and just really trying to come up with ways to really bring them to understand what's really going on and how the pandemic may not affect them and us specifically, but it affects our decisions, affect other people that we come in contact with.
Right. And I think that definitely goes into that directly links to what Will was sharing in his 3M model, that every decision impacts the next decision.
Right.
We may not be happy with this one, but it's because of something else that we're having to make this decision, i.e. while we're having to go, don't have to go, should go virtual, you know, right now. And I just wanted to kind of add to what you all were saying. For me, when it comes to growth mindset, it's a level of intentionality. Like, you are on purpose trying to be resilient, grow from what you're going through, although it may not be the most ideal circumstance that we're all experiencing. It's how am I taking this and allowing it to better me, growing from the experience and birthing something new out of it. Because I truly believe that something more innovative and something that's going to lend more flexibility to what we're doing is going to come out of this. And I'm all for it as long as it benefits children. And another is, how are we, one thing with kids that we all know, that it's not do as I say, not as I do. It's what you do, they will do. So how are we modeling that growth mindset? How are we modeling it in our words? How are we modeling it in our deeds? How are we modeling it in our interactions with other people? Our online speech, because we know everything is viewable now. And especially when we're communicating online with parents. I think Will made a point earlier to be sensitive to what our parents are experiencing and what our teachers are experiencing, because we're all going through so much. So it's being very mindful, just like we had to check in before we started. Check in with yourself before you send that email. Check in with yourself before you're communicating with that parent, because in addition to the roles that we are required to serve right now, a lot of people are parents, a lot of people are caregivers, people are struggling with mental health, and there will be an uptick. There's already an uptick in mental health issues, you know, since COVID has come, since all the racial trauma that we're experiencing as well. So I wanted to give, you know, 4 tips on how you could model a growth mindset. And the first one is teaching them about their brain and body. And this is where our counselors can definitely come into play, is teaching them that psychoeducation between the interconnectedness of your brain and your body and how they both affect one another. Again, modeling a growth mindset in the classroom. How do you talk with a growth mindset? You know, are you providing inspiration? Are you teaching them how to motivate themselves? These are things that they have to be taught to do if we want them to be able to do that for themselves. And helping them to rephrase their thoughts. We're dealing with a lot of anxiety, so that's going to bring about a lot of cognitive distortion, that black and white thinking, all or nothing, mind reading, trying to fortune tell, well, this person is this, and it just a lot of disjointed relationships, right? Which brings about a certain type of malaise and ill feeling, because we're so withdrawn from one another. Like, they brought the phrase, they corrected the phrase, physically distant and socially connected instead of social distancing, because there's so much that's coming out of that. And then my last one is praise effort over outcome. You are doing it, no matter what it looks like on the end. The fact that you are actively pursuing change is something that I want to celebrate. So I think that's really important when it comes to helping our kids build resilience, helping our teachers build resilience. But as the people that run it, how are we going to do that? I would like to hear from everyone. What's one thing that you're doing right now to build your level of resilience?
Well, I can one way I try to look at it is trying to build my resilience is just the idea of just trying to just making sure I make sure I'm okay mentally, because I don't think people truly understand that being in a house all this time can weigh on you mentally, emotionally, physically. So I do different things to try to make sure my mind is okay. And then also I live through interactions. We talk to our children, and one thing I encourage parents to do: don't let your child just sit in that room all day. Just talk to
No.
them and see what's going on, see how they doing. And one thing I can give my wife credit for this is that we actually started preparing our soon to be seventh grade. We started preparing her when she left fifth grade for middle school. We started letting her know. We started speaking those words into her. We started speaking those words of greatness into her. And we have a saying right now that middle school is a beast and we will slay the beast.
Yeah.
But
I
at the
like
end of the day, as parents, like I said, my wife she does a great job of working with the children when it comes to the homework and stuff like that. And I work with them as well, but I know I have to get the bulk of the credit to her. And one thing have to help parents understand also is that we too are parents, because our children's educational day may not start till 5 o'clock in the evening because we're working during the day and we're doing different things. We try to walk, we try to do different things to keep the girls active mentally, emotionally, and we have conversations to see how things are going with them and how they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Because a lot of times when children come to us, they just want to be heard. And then we have babies that are in some difficult situations where you got to remember school was their sanctuary
yes.
and they can't come there. So one thing I've done, like I said before, I've mentally prepared in different aspects on how to receive students. Before this, I've never heard of a Zoom, but now I'm zoomed out. But at the same time, I'm going to utilize that platform to help our children. That's another means that we can communicate. That's another means that we can meet. So
And build
I do
resilience.
different things to
Right.
try to keep myself prepared and mentally prepared as I go back to work Monday. I'm mentally preparing on different ways to improve from what I did last year.
Thank you. So this is what I want everybody to comment on. What are you doing to build your own level of resilience?
I
And if
think
you're not
just
doing something, you need to talk to me later.
I think just taking a deep breath, taking time for myself. Yesterday, I know I ran to the store. I did go in yesterday to the office, but I ran to the store and got a book. And I said, this has got to be my book of list this year to give me some peace and make, because there's so much information coming at you. There's so much that you have to manage, not only at work, but at home. But first giving myself the okay when I make a mistake or if I do forget something, but also holding myself accountable for things that I know are important. And so I have like one section for work, one section for home, where I'm constantly doing things like that to check off. But just most of the time, taking a deep breath, taking a walk, going for a run, eating my comfort foods that just, my husband knows when I'm stressed out, even at work, you'll find me in my office with a bag of candy, just chewing and rocking in front of the computer. But that's just me, that's my thing. I love sour candy. It just gives me peace. That's one of my favorite things. I just have to sit down and do that, when I got a lot on my mind. But I have to find something to give me peace and something to say, Keisha, it's okay. We're gonna, we'll get through it and just keep moving, and just be ready to be on my feet at any time.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
So one thing that I have actually taken up, and we started doing this as a family, is for Christmas we gave my kids bikes. So my husband and I got bikes as well. It was a little bit of a time frame that I had to get mine because obviously bikes are nowhere to be found. So we drove all the way to Port Arthur and we got a bike 2 hours away.
Commitment.
Yeah, we were very committed. So every single day around 7, we go for a bike ride around our neighborhood lake. And that's something that I take, and it helps you clear your mind. You're spending time with your kids. And it's just a really nice family activity that I plan to do even during the school year, because right now I honestly have to say that I am grateful that I've been able to spend time with my kids. Even at times, you know, you want to go back to work to have that
Space.
freedom.
Right.
I do want to say that I'm going to cherish these moments. And in regards to my daughter going to kinder, I've already had to speak to her because, like I said, I don't really know if she's going to end up going or doing virtual, but we've had the conversation of, you're going to have to wear a mask, you're going to have to make sure you're washing your hands. And there was a very good YouTube of Ryan's World that they actually explain the whole coronavirus. And they have a doctor that comes in and it breaks it down for elementary children. And my 3-year-old knows about coronavirus. So, you know, just educating my own children as well of proper hygiene and what we need to do to stay safe.
Yeah.
The bike riding is what I do to clear my head. And I'm also like Miss Dotson. When I'm stressed, I eat a lot of chocolate. My secretary already knows. She like has a stash for me in her desk. She's like, okay, here's your stash.
Make sure y'all follow that with lots of water. Water helps with everything. Chase,
Right.
Will, Jerry.
So this time has really given me a lot of self-reflecting. So I have taken a liking to running now. So I run every day. I swim every day now. Like working out is kind of my thing. I started painting. I started just doing DIY stuff around the house. And it really makes me feel just like I don't have anything on my mind. I just paint. I just go. I draw. So it helps. With my son being here, we're trying to do painting together. We, of course, have bikes. Thank God I bought 2 at Christmas when they were on sale. So we didn't have to drive to Port Arthur. But doing things like that with him, he's actually going with me on runs and things like that. But just really, it's all about self-care right now. It's whatever makes me happy in the moment, then that's what I'm going to do. And I know that's preparing me for when I get to work. Because again, I am enthusiastic about the year. I am happy because I'm going back to work and it's with my kids. But you know, as the world is, you have thoughts about, okay, what happens if I bring this home? Because my father also lives with me. So that was one of the other reasons why I wasn't sending my son out. Like, I'll take the risk, but I don't want him to take the risk to bring it back to my dad. So there's some things I have to do, you know, after getting off of work or whatever, but just self-care, like self-care, period. Whatever makes you happy, do it. And right now you have nothing but time. So do it.
Will and Jerry.
Well, I am working on my mental health so that I'm ready for my daughter and being able to be there for her and just giving her more grace, you know, because I remember you guys bringing that up and I was like, that's a good idea to just, everybody needs to give everybody grace in this situation, no matter who it is, because we all need it and we're going to need it because we just don't know what's going to come up and what's going to happen. So I'm just working on just making sure I'm handling things, and we're working on getting a schedule now because school starts in a little less than a month. So it's like, okay, no more staying up late. Now we got to go start going back to bed. Let's get back on the schedule, you know, trying to plan out like lunch-wise, how are we going to tackle that? You know, she's 7th grade now. So it's like, what do you want to eat? You know, just trying to give her some equity in it, you know, being able to feel partially responsible for herself. And, you know, I've always been big on teaching her how to do certain things and to be self-sufficient. So, you know, just continuing that. But I'm trying to I constantly think about last year, last school year, so that, and use that as my baseline of things to foresee and work on to improve, so that, we'll have a better school year this year, in terms of being ready for it, because I don't think anybody was ready for virtual learning from last year. So I'm just kind of gonna start a mental checklist and things. And she has a bike, but I've been planning on buying a bike, and like there are no bikes in sight. I've seen some online, but I want a specific bike, so this is gonna take some digging for me. But just making sure mine is like, she's not gonna have gym, so I have to make sure she has some type of physical activity.
Yes.
So like, I like to go to Stone Mountain, so that'll probably be something that maybe we'll do. She's worked out with me. We've done yoga before, so I'll just try to incorporate something we can either do in the house, or we'll go somewhere and do some kind of outdoor activity, either in the morning or after she gets done with her work in class, and then just making sure that all of her needs are met.
Thanks.
For me, I think during this time, it's just really important that we stay anchored in what Chase mentioned in regards to like being really anchored in reflection. I think that's really been key. When, on top of all the racial upheaval, like I kind of been going business as usual, you know what I mean? And there had to be a couple people to kind of poke me and say, slow down for a second. You need to actually process these things, because it'll hit you in the worst time. And so I think the idea of being reflective, I think also, also thinking about forgiving quickly during this time, you know what I mean? Like, we can't get caught up in our feelings in that sense. I mean, I know we're in this mental health piece, but like, we have to, gain this ability to forgive quickly. When we think about resilience, it's like the capacity to recover quickly, right? And to be able to, fall down and get back up. And so I think that being able to forgive yourself as well as others quickly are going to be really, really key. For me, I've been like engaging in conversation like this. Like, this is new to me. I typically don't do things like this. I'm in a doctoral program, so I'm exposed to a very diverse group of individuals. So I'm engaging in difficult conversations, because I think that builds capacity in regards to that moment where you might have to confront a difficult conversation. So, more and more, I grew up in Texas, Southern, try to avoid conflict type of individual. But at the same time, you know what I mean? I think that there's going to be moments where I got to be comfortable being vulnerable during this period. And so the things that I do, I've been collaborating with my daughter, doing some art. We love doing art. But my release is cooking. You know what I mean? I love to cook. You know what I mean? And I was able to, get a house a couple years back where I got kind of the ideal kitchen where I could spread everything out and cut everything. So that's, for me, you know what I mean? Really getting the opportunity to unplug and be positive. So.
Thank you. So in that vein, what am I doing? Well, what I've heard a lot of you all say is self-compassion is very important. Not being too hard on ourselves, because we're all entering into new terrain and learning how to best exist in the space that we're having to occupy right now. And another thing that I heard you all say is that creating family rituals is one of the ways that you are able to cope through whatever it is that we're dealing with right now. So I think if there are any parents that are watching, which I hope that there are, that one of the takeaways they'll have is that create some sort of family ritual, whether you are in a sprawling house, an apartment, or not. You can always do something that's going to improve the connectedness that you are feeling with within the members of your family. And another thing that I know is important is setting boundaries. Boundaries in your family, with yourself, and really just, I've heard educate. So it's not just the book knowledge, but we're having to re-educate ourselves about ourselves. What do we like? What do we need? What do we not like? What do we need to change? How can we better show up in the world for the people that we love? And most importantly, what are we doing to better show up for ourselves? I think that those are all key components to building resilience, building your capacity. And again, I'll say it again, what we do, our children see. How we react, they feed off of that. So we can be stressed out, we can feel however we feel, but knowing that we're teaching them ways in which to handle stress. We are teaching them ways in which to take care of themselves by the things that they see us do and not do. Our kids are very technologically savvy. They can find out stuff probably before we can. So we just you play to their strengths. What are they good at? What do you notice they're developing in, and allowing them to grow in those particular areas? So I would say, what am I doing? I'm walking, jogging, walking, jogging on a daily basis, and I'm just doing a lot of creative stuff. And I read a lot to keep me sane. It's difficult not inhabiting your own space while being grateful for the space that I do occupy. But it's figuring out, what can I do in this moment to help further where I want to be once we are, I won't even say on the other side of this, because I do believe that things are drastically going to change. Like the way that we see education is going to be reimagined because of what we're having to put into place now. I think that again, a lot of innovation is going to come out of this. So I won't say on the other side of this, I'll say that once we have a better understanding of how to move forward. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And one thing we have about 33 minutes and we have something planned for the end. But one thing I do want you to be able to provide is, what is one strategy that you think would be a high mileage strategy for parents to get a lot of use of in order to help their kids at home? That was a lot of words. What, y'all know I'm wordy. What's one thing that a strategy you can share with parents that for all intents and purposes will help improve the way that their kids are experiencing online school?
One, talk to your children. Have conversations with them. Know how they're feeling. Two, I would say open your mind. Be prepared to learn this technology, because the more you learn it, you will be able to help your child. You will be able to also be able to meet your child's needs. And also, don't be afraid to reach out to their teacher, because I can guarantee you, my wife and I, we are educators with counselors, but we've seen assignments where we're like, what on earth is this? And I'm good. And I know someone said something about the math before. I am very good at math, but the way they teach math now is a foreign language. So,
Yes.
So parents, keep this in mind. We're educators. We are struggling too. So don't be discouraged. Just be open to learn. Talk to your children. Don't be afraid to reach out for help, because I know a lot of times we let that pride get in the way. Do not be afraid to reach out and say, I am struggling, because there are people that are willing to help you.
Well, let me piggyback off of that before our next response. Thomas, with what you're saying, with what we're dealing with, an uptick in anxiety and uptick in depression, one of the key characteristics is the inability, to reach out for help. It's like you want the help, but you don't do it. So I think that as educators, we are going to have to take a proactive approach in figuring out a system in a way in which to reach out en masse or individually to our families, to our students, because we are afraid to be weak. I'll just say it. And it's having to everyone to reimagine. Everybody is struggling right now. So we have to I think that we are really going to have to take the role and being the one to make the first step in a lot of cases, which again teaches our families and our kids, you can do it too. I'm showing you how. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that great comment that you made. And I'll let y'all continue.
I have two strategies. One is, I know for some parents are really organized, some parents are really unorganized, but even those that are unorganized can just get one simple thing to kind of help them keep up. And I just think a calendar, because that was something that I had to make sure that I did once things really got going with the work that my kids or our children were receiving. I had to get a calendar and put it on the wall. And I knew that when the assignments were due, she has this, I highlighted one or wrote down one. So I knew that was hers. And one, I may have put something else besides. So I knew that was hers. But I knew that for sure, that's what they had to do that week. And I had to put in information, even for us, you know, meeting at this time, and connecting us even on our Google Calendar for certain things. And then the other thing that I can stress to parents, if you don't have one, create one, but that is to use your village. Whether that is a teacher, a parent, an uncle, an aunt, a neighbor, use your village. If you have to work all day, find a system to help you manage your students' work and your students' work ethic to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Have somebody check in on them. You know, get their passwords. Like my daughter has Schoology in the district that she goes to. She has email. She has a login for different things. I got all those logins and all of that stuff so I can know that she's in that chat. She's in this. She's doing what she's supposed to be doing. But I'm able to monitor her work, that she submitted it, and monitor all those things. So you need to talk to who you need to talk to. Create a group of parents around you that live close by, next door, across the street. Use your village. My cousin and I were talking about that the other day, and that was something that we were talking about working together, and she mentioned that to me, use your village. And so that's so important that we all just create a village or use the village within our family or friends to kind of help us get through all of this and help us with this education as our students venture into virtual this school year.
Thank you. Who's next?
So what I was thinking is, you kind of do it just like you would do your classroom. You set the tone. You have to set the tone for your kids. You can't come to your child and be like, oh, well, you got to do online learning again, and your teacher's going to be there, and then you got to do this work. It can't be that way. We have to set the tone. You're going to be in virtual classes. Your teacher's going to be teaching. We're going to be learning together. When I come home, this is what I want you to tell me about. You know, I'm going to watch this video, just kind of be familiar with what the process is. But be enthusiastic about your kid, whether they're going face-to-face or if they're going virtually. And start the day off with a positive. Write notes to your kids. Hey, you're going to have a great day today. You know, just something that gives them, well, my parent, number one, is monitoring me or wants to monitor me. They care. And they took the time out of their schedule to write me a note. That goes a long way. And that also helps with the communication between you and your child. I know when I started writing notes to my kid in his lunchbox, he would start writing notes and put them in my work bag. So that was just something that, you know, it helps not only, you know, you, but your child. Another one is just stay consistent. As a parent, like, I understand we have to make a sacrifice. That's the whole thing about being a parent. You are going to sacrifice for the rest of your life. So if I have to sacrifice another 2 hours of sleep or 2 hours of me going to do something personally to help my child be more successful in school, then that's what I have to do. I have to be consistent and making sure that I'm checking his grades, I'm emailing his teachers, or I'm reminding them, or Google Play, whatever it is, then I have to make sure that I'm consistent with that. And he knows that I am on Team Chase and his teachers are on Team Chase. So making sure that we all talk to each other and we communicate what are their expectations for my child, what my expectations are for my child, what his expectations for himself are, and then we're working together. I think Mr. Dotson said that earlier, just the collaborative part of being a parent, teacher, and educator, and just being a student. So that is some of the things I would think. And encourage questions. Tell your kid, like, encourage them. If you don't know, write it down. I will come back and email the teacher. But encourage them to seek out the knowledge if they don't understand something.
Yeah.
Thanks. Will, Yvette, Jerry.
Sure, I can go. So I used to work at an international school, and we used to be grounded in this Asia Society, a group called the Asia Society, and they used to put out these 4 global competencies, which I think is a great, you know, framework for any parent, you know, as they're trying to process or understand the different types of assignments. And the 4 global competencies are this. The first one is investigate the world, which, you know, I think is really important for us to, like what Chase mentioned, push that curiosity, push that, you know, idea, and have them embrace problem solving, because nowadays kids are so conditioned to have everything at the click of the mouse. So really getting them to understand things, you know, get solved through a process.
Right.
The second competency is recognize perspective, and that goes a lot with your social emotional element, which is making sure that they understand what empathy is and understand that, you know, particularly in this day and age where a lot of folks are starting to recognize the privilege they have, are starting to recognize the injustice that's going on. We need to make sure we're teaching our kids to be able to recognize perspective, but not just perspective, their own disposition. And I think that's really, really key for them to start to understand and form their own opinion.
Right.
The third piece is communicate ideas, which is, you know, really getting them the opportunity to have spaces where they can talk. Particularly those who live in trans-language, you know, environments. Make sure you're speaking, you know, I'm saying those multiple multilingual, bilingual environments are rich and continue on, because I think that, you know, those students as well are being exposed to a whole different level of learning that we don't even understand, that I think sometimes teachers and administrators take for granted. And so really embracing that opportunity to communicate ideas. And finally, the last competency is called take action, which is allowing them to be able to really understand where they fit in and what they're and find out what they're passionate about, so that they can kind of take action toward it, particularly as it relates to their community. So really looking at ways to map out how they can be involved and really make sure that they have a voice and that their voice is heard. So, you know, that development of their identity in regards to a scholar, as a student, as someone who's going to be curious and a lifelong learner, is going to be really, really key during this time period.
Thank you.
So I have to, actually, I'm taking notes from Ms. Scott because my gender, and you know, I've seen on the Nextdoor app, I know some of our community members in my neighborhood, they're already thinking if they're going to have virtual, they're going to go out and they're going to do gym, they're going to do PE, and they're creating a little social group here for the kids to help teach. So I was taking notes in regards to that. So I'm like, you know what, we do need to use our village. And I do agree that communication is key between the parent, the teacher, and your child, and also to set realistic goals for them to be able to feel that they have accomplished something that day, if they're doing virtual or even face-to-face, set realistic goals for them. Another thing that I do like for the parents that are here tuning in, I also want to comment that even though your child is at home, it's still very important for you to check what they're doing on social media as well. So having those open communications of what they're doing while they're out of school and in school, I think it's very important just to be able to ensure that your child trusts you and you're able to connect with them. Yeah. But having the village does really help. And I really like how Ms. Dotson put that out there.
Jerry? Jerry?
Just go on mute.
Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Now repeat the question, because I've been listening to everybody's answer, so I kind of lost like exactly what.
What's one strategy that as a parent moving forward would be quite effective for you working with Mackenzie?
Okay.
What would you like someone to share with you?
So my one strategy would be working on her organization with keeping up with her homework. We shared last year with her filling out her agenda book and just teaching her like to stay on top of doing things. And I realized that she doesn't take notes. Like I don't know if I feel like we were taught that, but that maybe that's not enforced these days. So I just realized, like, I've been kind of watching her the end of last year, I started watching her and looking at how she was doing things. And I'm like, well, where's your notes? Like, you know, and she's relying on these PowerPoint presentations that her teachers were providing her. And I'm like, you got to take notes. Like, and you have to, you know, to teach her, she's to find a new way to ingrain the information and to really become comfortable with what she's learning, and to listen and to practice active listening and being able to write down and jot down little things that she hears. So I know I heard somebody say that they were talking about like having a desk and a chair and everything. So the challenge of where we live, it's like it's hard to find a place in the house for her to want to learn in, because there's always a TV on somewhere, and you know, you gotta be I can't put everybody on notice in the house. Like, okay, be silent, Mackenzie's in school. So it's like we're kind of working around other family members and just trying to find that perfect sweet spot because like we have the bonus room, but she feels like it's a jail. So it's like, you know, because I'm trying to find out where can I put, you know, a desk for her to actually work and it's like productive and she's
Right.
getting sunlight and it's welcoming. So that's like one of my challenges that I have to work on is finding that space for her, that place, and then I'm just gonna really ask her like to pick
Where?
a couple places, right? And then we're just gonna have to work it down to one spot. But that was a challenge. It was just like it was always something going on. There's a lot of things going on, and it's like
Yeah.
you can't penalize your family members. So it's just like, okay, so where can I put her that she's gonna be active and it's gonna work for her and she's gonna, you know, be ready to learn. So that's I'm just working out different kinks that I'm realizing that I, you know, did when I self-assessed from last year, like things that have ways to get over these humps that we had.
Yeah. I would say, just to piggyback off what you're saying, is for everyone, for all the parents, and this is definitely not the only thing I'm going to say, is involve your children in decision making. It affects them completely. So it gives them accountability. It lets them have a sense of freedom and responsibility, to know that they're a part of the decision making surrounding their education. Um, so Jerry, if you haven't already, ask Mackenzie, what is the most comfortable space for you, where you would feel engaged and motivated to do the work, and we can see how it will work out. But I will share some strategy. Y'all know I'm about to go mental health here. Treat it like school, because it is school. So one thing that I shared earlier in the whole social distancing and online learning is create a routine. Time to wake up, schedule out your day. As children, they need frequent breaks. They are not geared to sit in front of a screen. Nobody is, but children aren't especially. They're not geared to sit in front of a screen for hours on end. So incorporating breaks into their day is going to help them be more effective and not veg out when it comes to their instructional online learning. The routine is important. One of the most important things I can say in the social emotional space is pay attention to their mental health. If you notice that they are withdrawing, if you notice that they're getting really fidgety, if they're struggling with separation, if they're asking you lots of what if questions, that's that anxiety kicking in, the withdrawal and sleep, if they're sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, you know, eating too much, not eating enough, listen to their speech and see if they're communicating feelings of hopelessness, powerlessness. These are all signals that something might be brewing, and I would rather you be proactive than reactive. There are lots of therapists that are offering online, what we call teletherapy, working with children, working with families, myself included. So there's support out there. And in addition, when it comes to the social emotional space, give them the opportunity to share how they feel and listen without correction and without judgment. Our kids have very strong emotions, and they know how they feel. And if they don't, it's our job to help direct them to more accurately being and more appropriately expressing their emotion. But we can't tell them, you need to do this, if we're yelling and screaming and cussing every time we're upset and we're stressed out, which is probably going to be a lot. We definitely have to model how to handle our disrupted emotion. We have to model emotion regulation. We have to model what it looks like to be emotionally aware. That's why we did the check-in. So again, when we finish, I'm going to put up some resources for you that you can put in your home so that you can teach your child about you may be feeling this way, we can talk about it. I would say set aside specific time to be able to communicate with them about their day and not asking, how was your day? Because they're going to be like, fine. Asking them very specifically, you know, what do you feel went well today? What do you think you learned? What did you like? You know, what is something that you would rather not do or do over? Making them an active participant in their learning and allowing them to actively communicate about their feelings, their thoughts, and their emotions is going to be very key. And for everyone, I would, like us to be able to provide education to our families about executive functioning. our executive functioning is disrupted with all the stuff that's happening. And that's the ability to make concise decisions, to be organized, to manage your time, all the things that our developing children struggle with on a daily basis. So then add all the disruption that's taking place, it makes it that much harder. So providing that education around what is executive functioning and how can you assist them with it is going to be extremely important. And lastly, I would say practicing regular self-care is going to be important for not only your children's social emotional wellness, but yours as parents and educators. Taking care of yourself. If you need a social emotional assessment, reach out to me. I can provide you with one. But just knowing, are you doing well? If you cannot sleep, if you are eating a whole lot, you're not exercising, you're probably not doing well. If you are highly irritated and triggered, you're probably not doing well. And those are warning signs for you to be able to, for you to then begin to start taking care of yourself. As everyone has said, implement your resilience routine. And if you don't have one, it might be high time to create one, because as Shay said, we have time. So it's important to, again, be proactive instead of reactive. I think we've been reactive for the last few months, but we've had lots of opportunity to be able to plan systems that are going to help not only ourselves, but our community as a whole move forward with a bit more intention. So we have just a few minutes left. I want to give everyone the opportunity to share just one takeaway, and we gotta do it briefly. Just one takeaway that you are happy about from this event and how people can reach you. I will go last. Go ahead.
You know, Kendall, I really want to thank you for putting this event together and giving us a platform to collaboratively connect as educators and share how we feel and how parents may be feeling to our community and everybody that's live on Facebook. So I'm just very happy about that. And I think one thing that I am taking away as a parent is, because my daughter's new to going to school, is what Ms. Dotson said. I'm going to create a village to assist us in helping her be successful this school year, especially because she's going to kinder. So it's a different, I guess, environment, because kinder's hard. They're very hands-on. So I'm going to use my resources that I have available. And I really thank everybody for being on here as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Yvette.
Well, I learned from Ms. Rowland about, setting up a space for my daughters, because we haven't, when we came home for the pandemic or during this break, we were all at the dining room table or at the kitchen table, and I never stopped to think about what is the most comfortable place for you to get your stuff done, where you're not distracted, where you feel like you can focus. So that's one thing. And then I'm with Will. I've never had this opportunity before to speak on a panel. So it really helped me step out of my box, because, normally I'm used to just doing what I do, and, I can be quiet or I can speak in front of parents, but this, really kind of pushed me out of that comfort zone. So this was a good experience for me.
Thank you for agreeing.
Thank you.
Amazing job.
Thank you.
Chase, you just go down. Let's go. I'm gonna call y'all out. I'm gonna be the teacher.
Go ahead. So my takeaway, honestly, I really like the 3 M's. So Will, thank you for that, because I do have to place that into as a parent, and then place it into as an administrator. How can I monitor? How can I help management? How can I motivate? Because there are a lot of teachers who are not motivated to come back right now due to what's going on. So making that a pivotal piece of what I need to do when I get back into the building is something that I want to focus on. The using the village, absolutely. I think that is, I talked to several other of my former colleagues and was like, listen, I'll do science because I taught science, 6th grade science. If somebody takes math, we can have that. So I definitely think those are some good things that I took away from this, and just hearing other parents, just the reasons why their kids are going to face-to-face or why they're going to virtual, or just the things that they're having to think about to make the transition for this next school year. And I guess you can reach me on Facebook at Chase Caesar. It's AE like the salad. Or on Twitter, it's Chase and the letter N Houston. But I'm grateful that you did put this together. This is my first panel and I love it. And I want to do more, especially for parents who may have questions. And again, I'm not the end all be all. And, I want to be as transparent with other parents as possible. So I think this is the perfect place to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, friend. Will.
For me, it's just, being able to recognize that there is a level of optimism out there. I can get really pessimistic in the work that we do, and like we're always trying to adjust. But it's just really refreshing to be able to hear folks really, really encouraged and motivated. And I said that was one of the M's, but that's one area that I have to sometimes work with myself with being self-motivated and being motivated with the change that's about to take place. So I really appreciate just the level of optimism. We talk about a growth mindset. The level of growth mindset that exists in this little space that we have virtually right now is amazing. And I hope that we can definitely continue that and hopefully spread that amongst those who are watching on Facebook. And, you can reach me on Instagram. My Instagram is glyphgraph, or at Twitter at glyphgraph. I would, I appreciate this all the intellectual, all the down to earth. And once again, it feels good to be back in the mode with Texans, because I'm from Texas. I graduated from Huntsville High School. My grandmother taught 50 years in Cleveland, Texas. So it feels really great to be around my fellow Texans again. And my sister from Georgia. I went to college in Morehouse, so I'm very familiar with all those everything that's going on down there. So it's really great to be a part of this community.
Thank you, Dodson.
Well, I think what I take away from this is that teamwork makes the dream work. And as a parent, like I said, my wife and I, she's done a phenomenal job of just trying to manage everything. But I can say this is that as parents, don't feel like you're by yourself. You're not alone. Like I said before, even educators, we're struggling with this as well. We're trying to find balance. So walking away from this, just keep communicating, keep talking to your children, keep communicate with them, communicate with your teachers. But when you communicate, just understand that they're managing their households as well. So we're all trying to learn our way through this. So I encourage parents, please learn some of this stuff. Get on the internet, go to the website for your school, look up all that information so you can have it in front of you. Because if you got a cell phone and you got Facebook, you can operate this. And once again, I'm Thomas Dodson. Facebook, Thomas Dodson. I guess Instagram, Thomas C. Dodson at yahoo.com. And I don't know the Twitter stuff. But so at the end of the day, I'm more than welcome. But like I said before, it's been a phenomenal experience on the panel with you guys. Kendall, you did a phenomenal job. And I look forward to keeping in touch with you all as well, too.
Thank you. Jerry.
Well, I want to thank everybody, and thanks, Kendall, for inviting me to participate on the panel. This is my first time as well. Everybody has some really good points coming from the educational standpoint, and giving good advice for parents. So the things that stuck out, like Will's 3M model, was really good. Somebody mentioned about giving grace, and the whole growth mindset. Right. We all just need to remind ourselves to give each other grace, and with grace comes forgiveness. So and with grace, we can't take this personally. Like at the end of the day, we each have to keep our own goals in mind. Like the educators, you have two goals. You are on the education side, and you guys are parents. So you have a dual role in this whole thing. So I just appreciated you guys' feedback, because you can understand, like me being a parent, and then you are on the other side, fighting to get this school year started. My sister, she's a counselor. She's been busy since last week because they're trying to get things together. They were supposed to go back into the building, and then all of a sudden they change to be virtual. So things are forever changing, you know, out this way, you know. So my takeaway was the grace thing. So with grace comes forgiveness and understanding, and just try to, you know, use empathy, you know, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be stressed, and, you know, you try to stay positive all you want to, but we're going to have those days where you're just going to have those pessimistic moments where you just feel beat up and you feel like nothing is coming together. And, you know, our kids may not be working with us either, you know, because they're stressed out as well. So you got to remind yourself, you know, to give each other grace, and to, you know, just have that sit down talk and really just try to understand where we're all are coming from, and just try to reset, because we're going to have those struggling moments. And what I was going to say also, I was going to tell everybody to, as we're trying these new things and we're trying to figure new ways out, to share. Like, try to share, make sure you guys share them either with this group, with your friends. Like, just continue to share your success stories. And even with when you are struggling and you're not being successful, share that too, because people need to understand, like, okay, well, this is where she didn't do a good job, so I don't want to try that way. That, you know, that I can see where that doesn't work for me as well, or that what doesn't work for you may work for somebody else. So, you know, share your experiences with your parents and your coworkers, and, you know, just try to share as much as you can and be open about having open dialogue with all of your circles. Like, I've been pressing my friends about that with everything, with how this whole new way of life is going on. Be in open dialogue with, you know, all of the new challenges that we are facing. Talk about it with your circles and see where everybody is. And, you know, just, we need to stay in constant dialogue, because you never know the things that you may learn, just like how we've learned with this panel discussion with each other. We've learned a lot of new things. So keep that dialogue going, because that's just, you know, that's that village mentality. It does take a village.
Yes.
We can't be silent. We gotta, and, you know, empower each other. And you'll be amazed on the smallest things that could really motivate and empower and really help somebody. And Will, I went to Spelman, so
I think y'all might have ran in the same circles, actually.
Yeah, we were in the same class.
Yeah. So I just realized something, and I have to apologize. We went overtime, but the everything has been so good, so I'm so sorry. But y'all know I'm a stickler for time. But I'll share my final takeaways. And one of the most important is that we are community. Like, this event has just exemplified the importance of community, and we can be a part of so many, but it's important to tap into the strength that our community can provide us. So, and the sharing is quite important. Another one is that growth is a process. We have all grown. I want you to kind of just imagine how you were when this whole thing started and where you are now. And if you look at the growth that you've made, that's going to be exponential when we really have an idea of what we're doing and we keep moving forward. And that the learning is in the journey. We have learned so much about ourselves, learned so much about processes that work and that don't, learned about our kids, their strengths and some of their weaknesses, and how we can better show up for the people in our lives, including ourselves. And the last one, of course, is going to be always prioritize your mental health, period. If your mental health is failing, that is going to seep into every area of your life. And if your mental health is thriving, that is going to help you better show up as your more authentic and true self in every area of your life. So if you are having a hard time, I definitely say reach out to a licensed professional to help you in your situation. And there's no shame in seeking help. So you can find me on Facebook, my personal page or my business page, Aspire Counseling and Wellness Center. You can visit my website, aspirecounselingwell.com. Find me on Instagram at, I have two, at Aspire Counseling Well. That's my business. And I'm on LinkedIn, Kendall Tyson, and I feel like I forgot something. I am on Twitter at Aspire CWC. Thank you all. Y'all just don't know. This was like a 3:15 idea the Lord be putting into my head. I had to wake up to type it out and then ask you. And I'm so grateful for your participation. Again, I'm sorry for running over time. We'll just have to manage that when we plan another one. So I hope that you are open for more, doing more events like this. You all have provided a wealth of knowledge and information and expertise, and I am beyond grateful because we have helped not only parents, but educators be able to move forward in this space and be a bit more effective. So I'm grateful. Send me, I have all of your information. Will send me that 3M. I'm gonna share, I'm gonna post everything tonight on my Facebook business page. So I'll end with that, especially since I've already run over time. And I just wanna tell you that I'm grateful for you all and I cannot wait to collaborate with you again. And on that note, we are going to say, peace out, and I hope that everybody goes and be the best self. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.